What is up, everybody? Another episode of the Get Back Guys here. Of course, joining me are the two lamest hosts in the city, Alex and Kyle.
I am
How are you
pretty
guys
lame.
doing?
Doing
Exactly.
all
I'm doing good. I'm thrown off. I got a weird message right as we started the show, so I was just thrown off by it. But I'm good.
Classic.
I'm here. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby.
Alex is
Well, there we
always prepared.
I'm always.
He's always showing up.
I'm always making money moves.
Well, on today's episode, it's going to kind of be going over classic piece or two of football news. We're going to talk about NBA real quick, just normal things before we dive into it. You guys make sure to subscribe and follow us on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify or Apple Music. And let's just jump right into it. First, I'll lead it off as I'm repping my boys Spurs today. NBA draft is in a week, and the season has been set. They've agreed on a date. December 22nd is when the NBA is coming back. And so, of course, that means that I think this weekend or early next week is when trades will be available for teams. Then we have the draft. Then a little bit later, we're going to start the free agency period. Obviously, not as crazy as we had last year with Kawhi Leonard moving and a lot of big pieces. But there have been a lot of trade rumors going around. James Harden, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, for the Spurs, LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan have been out there in trade talks. Drew Holiday has been linked to going to the Hawks. So there could be some fireworks happening. You know, the Houston Rockets are thinking if they decide to just blow it up and trade both Westbrook and Harden, that will shake up the league drastically. Looks like the Atlanta Hawks are really trying to just become win-now contenders. Rudy Gobert is another guy who's been up. Obviously, these are all rumors, pre-draft stuff. I know that it's going to have been a weird year having the NBA draft not being kind of football's dead season, so I haven't been as focused. But, yeah, are you guys excited about the start for the NBA? I know it's a couple days before Christmas. What are your brief thoughts on it?
It just feels weird that we just ended basketball and we're about to start the next season because it doesn't really feel like, it's just a weird time. I like them starting at Christmas. Christmas and basketball go together very, very well. Compared to like the NFL has Thanksgiving, give NBA Christmas. I like the start time. I'm happy for it. Trades make me curious. Is Miami going to pull the trigger on a guy like Russell Westbrook to join Jimmy Buckets in that team? I don't know. I don't know if I really want it until they start winning games. Then maybe I'm all for it. But, yeah, I'm excited. I'm curious to see if LaMelo does go number one. I don't really pay much attention to the NBA draft. College basketball, I like the tournament. I tend to find players when I watch it. Obviously, we didn't have the tournament, so I'm a little more lost than I normally would be. But I know LaMelo, obviously, because of what his dad has done. But he seems like he's going to be a really good player. I don't know if he is the transcendent number one elite guy. It sounds like he might be, and a lot of teams want him. So, I'm curious to see where he goes. If he goes to a team where it makes a lot of sense, he's going to fit in well and grow into somebody good, or is he going to become an Andrew Wiggins and just kind of filter out, or a Lonzo Ball?
Yeah.
So,
any thoughts, Kyle, or are you just hyped to roll it back with your Laker Nation?
Because I paid attention so much to them already. I'm curious to see how this new season is going to go. I mean, it's such a really short period for these players just coming out of the playoffs, for some of these teams anyway, and going into like a new start for the season. But I think it will be good when it comes to entertainment and for viewership because, as football ends and, we get the springtime, there's usually like never any sports at all, like not even sports that we don't care about in the first place that are hanging around. So at least like we'll have basketball to rely on, and it'll be in the part to where things really start heating up for the league. I'm like Alex to where I don't have college basketball and I don't have March Madness this year to where I can't see what sort of players to keep an eye out on. So right now I'm just going to be keeping my eye out for trades, and especially when it comes to like the Houston Rockets stuff, that was kind of surprising to me. I thought for sure like or maybe I just haven't been paying too much attention, but I always felt like they were in good hands once they got Westbrook, and they were trying to make that push for like playoffs and, a title. But, maybe it's not working. We'll just have to wait and see. But that one's going to be like the big thing I'll be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, I think the Rockets is something interesting because I would be shocked if they traded James Harden. I could see them trying to get off of Russ more and them just trying to shake things up because they were so far away from what the Lakers were doing. Yeah, and as far as LaMelo, I actually think he, from just a pure talent wise, I think is probably the most talented player right now in the draft. Antics aside, and like if he's going to pan out like Lonzo, I'm not sure, but he is a big prospect. And then the other guys, I think Denny, I can't remember his last name, but he's a foreign. He, I think, has a chance if he gets in the right system, because he has a lot of work to do. He's 19. If he gets in the right system, he could be a phenomenal player. So there's a couple of guys who I think could be big. It's weird to have a higher draft pick for the Spurs this year, and they've been rumored to be linked to the second overall pick with the Warriors and try to move off of LaMarcus Aldridge. So yeah, I'm just excited for basketball, especially for the season starting the 22nd and then getting those awesome games the 25th. I think it should be an even better atmosphere for Christmas because everyone's going to be excited to play. Hopefully, like a team like the Nets, it should be playing on Christmas. I want to see them play so badly, and I'm sure Katie and Kyrie want to get after it. So I'm just hyped for it, and I think, yeah.
Are they planning a full season?
I think it's
82 games?
70 games-ish. I think it's cut down a little bit, like 72 games, but I'm not 100% positive.
Yeah, because the coolest thing about the start time as a fan is we get basketball in the summer again because we got it at the tail end with the bubble. But if you can really get playoff hard in the summer, it's fun. If you can get it late in the summer, when there's that lull in sports, if somehow basketball can just stick to this, and then we don't really have because as a non-baseball fan, you two golf, so you enjoy those tournaments throughout the year and whatnot. Yeah, maybe you guys got to have a Masters episode. Get me out of here.
We can do that.
I just like that as a fan of these two sports are my favorite to watch. Then I'm all for it. And without the tournament, I just don't know how these kids are. I don't watch. LaMelo probably wasn't going to play in the tournament anyways. He's playing overseas, but I just don't. I'm not seeing anybody. So that's just how I am. I just don't watch college basketball without the tournament. But yeah, that's my last final thought.
Usually with the NBA draft, you only have to pay attention to the top 4, maybe 5 guys, and then the rest is just shoot your shot, see whoever you can get. But even sometimes in the top 4 or 5, there's 1 or 2 guys that end up being bigger surprises than you realize. So it's not like we're terribly out of the loop completely. We just don't know the names of these said 4 to 5 players.
Yeah, obviously I've been researching a little more because the Spurs have the 11th pick. But yeah, it is interesting because also the last handful of years, there's been a lot of good players who have come in the mid-teens. A guy like Tyler Hero. Obviously, if we go back like 8 years, Kawhi Leonard was drafted. Later. Yeah, so Klay Thompson, I think, was 11th. So, it's gonna be interesting, and you never do quite know. You might get Anthony Bennett, or you might get Anthony Davis. But I'm just excited about the NBA, and I had to talk about it a little bit. And I hope my Spurs do some moves. And
I hope they do for you.
Yeah, I hope search for the next superstar, and then we'll be back on track. Because that's so easy to do, find a superstar. Anyways, now let's move on. I'm going to hijack Kyle's segment, because we only have 2 pieces of news today. And so the
Kyle's
NFL
news of the day.
Kyle with the news.
Kyle with
Nick
the news.
taking it over.
Nick's such a mean guy.
Exactly. So we had 2 pieces of news. The NFL passed 2 protocols. One for them supporting more diversity with rewarding teams that cultivate more diverse coaching talent, getting rewarded if head coaches or general managers get hired with a 3rd-round pick. And the second is a potential playoff format. And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, so we'll go to you next. But the playoff format would be if we cancel an entire week of the season, that this would go into play, and that they would add an 8th playoff team.
Yeah. And I think it's more than just a week. It's if they cancel quite a bit and the seeding would change. So I know that I was reading an article the other day how Philly right now would have the 4 seed if the season just ended. But if it ended with the playoff protocol, we'd actually end up being the 8th seed, because then it changes up the narrative of, we're going to basically go into a legit bracket, NBA style bracket, and just play it out. And they go off of just records at that point. So, do you want to just talk about my thoughts on it, or?
Well, yeah. We'll go to your thoughts after this. So does it still does all 4 division winners have a representative? So, and you would just be 8th
the 4
based on
division
record?
leaders would make it, and then the rest off record, but you would be set in the bracket.
Seeded record.
Based off of record.
Okay,
but
so
every 4 division winners would be a lock.
Okay.
They're in, and then 4 other teams would be added, the 4 best records.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on both topics?
I hope it doesn't happen, because I want a home playoff game if somehow Philly wins the division. But, I'm for that. It makes sense. They need to have some sort of a contingency plan if they cancel a bunch of games. Bring in another team makes sense, because then, you get the bye week out of there for that 1 seed, which they were already attempting to, they got a new team in there this year. They'd add even another one if this happened. But more football games I'm for, and I think that's what their idea is that, hey, this will be at least 1 more football game that people will get to see. So we're gonna do it that way. I don't think my division had anything to do with it, and them deciding to bring in another team to feel fair, I don't think is actually part of it. I really don't think Roger Goodell cares that a division is historically bad right now. I think he understands that this happens almost never. It's only happened a handful of times. So I don't think he really cares about that. But I'm all for that rule. I hope it doesn't happen, though, because I want the season to stay the same. But, yeah.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on the playoff seeding?
It's one that makes sense as a contingency plan. If things go to the worst possibility when it comes to all this COVID stuff happening. Surprisingly, even though I feel like I'm the one that worries the most about NFL and COVID, I feel like seeing how the weeks have progressed since stating my last worry note about it, it's going to be okay. It seems like they're doing testing the best way that they can. It seems like, they have staff members and players who occasionally do test for positive for COVID, and we hope that they are safe, obviously, and healing and recovering from that. But for the most part, it seems like they're false cases, or they're having to just make sure these players have been around them, but just double check if they have it themselves. So for the most part, it seems like it's been going thoroughly well. But I don't think it's about to get so bad to the point where we have to use this plan, but at least it's a plan that's decent. The only downside that I see from it is that I will have the entire NFC West and not just my Seahawks in the playoffs, because every team is just doing so well. Maybe the Niners not as much, but I would hate to see any one of them for the 3rd time in a year. But for the bigger picture of it all, if it does come to that, I think it's the best possibility to do.
Yeah, I do think it makes sense, and I also don't think it's super likely that they have to use it. I'm glad that they're thinking about it. Makes sense. It's going to be funny if it does happen and the Packers are a 2 or a 3 seed. I'm going to be even more excited about it because it removes the big bye for the 1 seed. But whatever fan base, whatever team gets the 1 seed, if it's taken away and they don't get a bye, that fan base is going to be upset, and rightfully so. Could be. I mean, it could be Seahawks or Packers.
I mean, it could be me if we're being honest.
You know,
a heck of a tear is coming.
Honestly,
I've got a brutal month. We'll get there.
And you've already have 4 losses. I bet there's one team in the NFC that will go 13-3. So
hey, you need to relax.
Got him. But that would be a bummer for whatever team gets the 1 seed, because it is such a big deal. And in the AFC, if the Steelers go win 15 games or something like that, get the 1 seed, and then just the bye gets erased, and then Patty Mahomes just rolls up on them, I know that the Steeler fan base is going to probably be a little upset, but it is what it is. And so, Alex, what are your thoughts on the diversity kind of new reward for diversity?
To start this off, I just hate that we're here as a society, that we have to put in incentives to reinforce good coaches. Good coaches should be hired. It doesn't matter what color their skin is or where they're from or anything like that. And so there's a part of me that hates that our society is like that, and that's the gut reaction I have when I first heard it. But overall, it's a success for the NFL and a success for these coaches, because it's going to make Roger Goodell and the NFL look better. And the coaches deserve a chance. So rewarding a team who brings out strong, good coaches of different races is awesome. It's great for them to finally get the opportunities that they deserve. I think of a guy like Deuce Staley, who's on my team, who I don't understand is why he's not our offensive coordinator. We don't even have an offensive coordinator. And I've still wondered why he wasn't considered. I mean, I'm sure he was considered, but why he wasn't offensive coordinator. They made him assistant head coach. Doug's just being weird. But, I think of a guy like that who really deserves a shot to get out there and really be an offensive coordinator, maybe a head coach. And there's lots of guys all over the league. Chiefs, Rave. I mean, they've all got great talent. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy that we are getting this. These incentives are good because teams are going to work harder on finding right coaches to bring in, because they're going to want the extra draft pick. And it's good for those people, people of all different races and ethnicities, because they're going to really get the opportunities they deserve.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on it?
I like it too, because it's the start of change. I do think that minorities, especially black coaches, are being treated unfair in the NFL. I think that they should have more of a chance, more of a shot to get these chances to be head coaches and, GMs and whatnot. And it's good to see that the NFL is finally doing some sort of change. What I don't like is it being a reward system for a team that happens to get a really great talented guy who happens to be black. You know what I mean? It's just,
sure.
It feels dirty. It just feels, it's just that reward system that I don't like. I wish that we could be in a place to where it's obvious that we should all be equal and that we should all get equal chances to be able to get these sort of jobs and positions. So, but it is a start. It is a start. I wish the start isn't in the way that this rule is setting it up as a reward system. That I don't like, but I understand that we're not in the perfect world and we have to do what we can in order to make change so that way we are in a perfect world. So like Alex, I do like it because it's a start of change and it's good change, and I hope that this really does help minorities get a better shot in the NFL to be coaches and GMs. I just wish that we weren't in a place to where it's being treated as a reward system for teams who hire these coaches in the first place. So, but anyway, yeah, I'm also not the guy that should be, trying to do all this preachy stuff and whatnot. I'm just saying how I'm feeling right now. And I hope that this does work out in the long run, actually, to where we can get rid of this rule and it becomes much more normalized, because it already should have by now.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think it's a really, really great thing. And I think I just don't see any other way of change happening without a reward system. And I think it's absolutely necessary. And I think because you look at the huge gap in NFL athletes who are non-white, and the huge gap in head coaches and offensive coordinators who are white, it's just not good. And it's not because there's not talented coaches out there. And part of the reason is at lower level jobs, diverse coaches are not being hired. And so I am all for teams trying to create a more diverse coaching tree for them. And I am totally for those organizations who are willing to hire more diverse options getting a reward, because that's how the change starts. And I do hope in 10, 15 years this rule can go away. I just don't see any other way of it happening. Obviously, I think it's better than a team hiring, getting a pick, because then even more people would be able to say he was the only reason he got the job. But this is about developing talent, and you're not going to get a head coaching job if you're not a good offensive coordinator. It's just saying, let's cultivate a more diverse pool of offensive coordinators in the league. And I think that is a really, really good thing. And it's a really good step for the future of the NFL being more diverse, because in everything we need more diversity. And I would recommend anyone who wants to hear someone probably articulate it better than I have. I'm a big Nick Wright fan. He had a great piece about it today on First Things First. It just kind of explaining it. And he also talks about how sports media is overwhelmingly white for sports media who are non-athletes. It's another place that needs to change. And so I think it's a great step forward.
I got a quick question about it. So the team that, how do you say his last name? Eric Bellamy, is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah. For the Chiefs, the offensive coordinator. So he goes and gets a head coaching job, which he rightfully deserves. He's a great coach. I mean, what he's done with Patty's insane. So then the Kansas City Chiefs receive a third-round pick for him getting hired.
Compensation.
What happens if, because that is for offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and head coach, correct? So if a quarterback coach, over in Minnesota gets hired in Seattle as an offensive coordinator, then Minnesota would also be rewarded a pick, correct?
I'm not sure if it's offensive and defensive coordinator as well.
You mean for what position they're hired as?
Yeah, I thought it was those three.
Would they get a reward?
For hired? Does the team gets a reward?
It might be.
If a team hires someone else's coordinator of any sort position as a head coach, I believe they get the compensation.
Yeah, I'm not sure
if it's offense or defensive coordinator. It's only as a head coach.
Head coach or GM, I believe.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
It can be a coaching position or it can be an executive position to begin with, and then when they proceed to a higher rank of being GM or head coach, then that team would get the compensatory third-round picks.
Okay, I swear I read somewhere that it said offensive and defensive and head coach.
I've only seen this. Yeah, you go. Sorry.
Well, just off of that thought, I was going to ask the question, you guys, if you knew more of that, what happens if you then internally hire? So that might have been why, my question was probably answered there, because it's like, hey, if we have a guy like a Deuce Staley who's not a head or an offensive coordinator and the incentive was there, because I thought it was, does that mean the Eagles, they hire their own guy? Do they also get a pick? And which would make sense since they don't do that for it not to work, because I wouldn't be for that, because then teams could just stockpile picks where they're not really aiming to hire diversity.
Yeah, it's not internal. It's an external thing. So another organization has to hire from, so it's like if the Packers would have to hire someone from the other 31 teams, I don't think it's promotion. I think the whole purpose of this is just to try to get a more diverse coaching talent pool to choose from for head coaches.
Yeah. Well, are we about to move on? Because there's breaking news.
Ooh.
Well, what's the breaking news?
Back to basketball. Apparently, just a little thing. Nick loves talking his ball, so let's just throw it back here. Apparently, broken just now. One of our buddies in our boys chat put this in, that Russell Westbrook requests a trade from the Houston Rockets. He wants out. It's not that they're considering it. It's that he wants out.
Wow.
Looks like it was broken by Legion Hoops. Don't know about the credibility there, but
yeah, I'm seeing other people tweet about it.
How bad?
Right. Sounds legit.
How bad was it there in Houston with him being paired with James Harden that he wants to leave? It's only been a year, right?
Yeah,
Am I missing something?
So, he actually played when the NBA season stopped for COVID and they took the month's break, Russell Westbrook was playing the best basketball he had played since he won MVP in 2016 and was just absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a questionable fit stylistically with him and James Harden, even though they're great friends. And that one of the reasons I was all for it is because I was like, these two guys are great friends off the basketball court. I would love to see, them succeed together, but it's in a similar way that the Spurs have seen DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge are just not a good fit on the basketball court, even though they're both phenomenal basketball players. And I don't know about the behind the scenes stuff. I don't know how he was treated by Daryl Morey, even though he's gone, and same with Mike D'Antoni, he's gone. I don't know if kind of the new general manager and head coach want him out of there. And so I'm not really sure. This was all must be behind the scenes stuff, but obviously they came up well short. It's not like they pushed the Lakers to 7 games. They lost in 5, and they could barely overcome the Thunder, in 7 games the round before, which is a big underwhelming performance by them. But that's wild. I don't know what team takes him on, though. I know the Clippers have been rumored, but that's they would have to give up Paul George probably to make that fit money wise.
They already want to, don't they? Oh no, I'm thinking of a different player. Never mind.
Well, they've been, or there's been reports that they are potentially interested in him. Another team is the Knicks, are always looking for any star they can get. What are you thinking?
I'm saying us, South Beach
The
would be a
Heat.
team that could take him on. But
they could take him on.
I don't
The
want to give up
Pelicans?
any piece that they'd ask. I'm not giving you Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. No way. These guys are young. They're good. I don't need you for that. And we got Giannis coming a year, maybe a year later. I'd rather wait and just see what happens.
It's true. I mean, if you guys had Russell Westbrook and you were able to keep Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, that would fit really well because they're such great shooters around him. But, I mean, Russell Westbrook's really hit or miss. Sometimes he's in the zone and he's a borderline top 10 guy. I mean, obviously there was a time where he easily was, and sometimes he makes really bad decisions, and it's really highlighted in the playoffs. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of wild. I don't know what team wants him on his contract.
Having a coach like Eric Spoelstra, one of the actual elite coaches I think are left in the league, is I think there's not many in NBA. I think there's really only 3 or 4. Would be something big for him because I don't think he's really necessarily had that elite coach. I mean, we saw what an Eric Spoelstra can do to a Jimmy Butler. We know what a Greg Popovich and a Steve Kerr can do, or Brad Stevens. But the rest of the coaches are just kind of out there. Some of them are all right, and they got a chance to get up there. But
I'm trying to think of contenders that he could go to. Like, what's a team that think they can put him over the top? The Clippers have been linked. I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, Bucks are another team that need another star, but they'd give up Chris Middleton and Eric Bledsoe or something like that. I don't think the Rockets would do that, and that wouldn't really be a good fit. Probably be okay.
Could Grizzlies or Mavs be in contention?
Probably not, just because Ja Morant and Luka Doncic are both point guards, right. So that would be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm just curious at what team needs Russell Westbrook.
Now, if Miami gives Goran Dragic, who I love the Dragon,
maybe an improvement,
that max contract and sends, one of our other guys, that I'd be more down with if it's one of the smaller guys or a draft pick, because then we've got a pretty good team. And it would just trade max contracts, so we would still have the one opening up next summer.
Well, the issue, though, is that Russ's contract is far worse than Goran's. I think it's worth
Max
quite a bit
still
more.
Has a max. He still has a max. Goran does.
Well, I think he has a super max is what. Well, maybe he doesn't have a super max, but Russ's contract's pretty rough, and it gets worse every year because he's still got on there for like 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
the issue with the Heat getting him is that if you guys don't win a championship in the next year or two, it probably will really hamper you unless you can deal him, which apparently is an easy thing to do now if it happens 2 years in a row. Another team that comes to mind before we move on to the NFL would be the Phoenix Suns, who have been rumored to be interested in Chris Paul. Just like a team that wants to make it to the playoffs that hasn't been there in a long time. They need a point guard. That could be a place for him. That's really interesting.
Is Booker about to be a free agent there? I thought I was hearing a rumor that he might want out of there too.
He might want out. I'm not sure exactly what his contract is. It's probably, I mean, it's obviously not this summer. Could be next summer or the year after that. Contract. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, if they don't make the playoffs soon, he's going to want out because he's never made it.
Yeah, and I think he's a pretty good player to not want to. Yeah, he's. I don't know what like the prime years are for basketball players necessarily, but he's probably in there. So
he's just entering his prime. I think prime's typically like 27 to early 30s. 33 is kind of the main prime that you see for an NBA player. I think. Yeah, and makes sense. Definitely a little different. Like Dwight Howard's was way earlier than that, but he had a big back injury. Yeah, it's really interesting. That could be a team actually that would be interested in him and might have the firepower to trade for him just because they need to make the playoffs and they need to put everything on the table to get Devin Booker to the playoffs if they want to keep him, or else they're going to have to rebuild in a couple of years and be in a really bad spot. So, yeah. But also,
does
Chris
Portland make a move? I mean, I know they got Dame at point guard, but like, do you consider it and just put them both on the court?
Well, but CJ's a 2 guard, so that would be moving CJ to a 3. That would be a really bad fit, I think.
Very small.
Because they need forward help and center help. It's just, there's a lot of decent point guards in the NBA. I mean, the Lakers obviously are a team that could use a point guard, but I don't think they can afford him. But that would be wild.
We're still trying to remove Luol Deng's contract, I believe. I think we're still dealing with that.
But the Lakers have been rumored to be in connections with players like DeMar DeRozan and Chris Paul, as far-fetched as it may be. But really interesting. Yeah, so some wild NBA news, but let's shift it back onto the NFL. We got a little off track there. So let's go to our over.
We're right on track.
Over or underrated segment here. And we'll start with Kyle. Throw things off. Kyle, what's your over or underrated from week 9 in the NFL?
I think people are overreacting a bit about the Buccaneers' terrible loss to the Saints. Look, I can't explain what the heck happened to the Buccaneers. I don't know how they just were that bad against the Saints, but I don't think this is going to be a thing to where we see them just like losing as badly as they did. They might be a team kind of similar to the Steelers to where they're going to have to win in close matchups, even though their talent says that they shouldn't. But I don't see them just losing and just being that colossal of a mess as they were on Sunday. I just think, including Antonio Brown now, they have the firepower that they need with, Chris Godwin still trying to heal from his fractured finger or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that defense has shown that they're legit. Like, just all around, they got the talent to be able to push off for playoffs and maybe a Super Bowl. So I know like they had a close game against the Giants. They lost terribly to the Saints, but I just think they're going to be a team similar to the Steelers to where maybe they win in close matchups or they'll be able to really showcase their Super Bowl potential to other teams. So if you're a Buccaneers fan, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, we've seen a lot of bad days to the office over this season, and I think the Bucs are going to be fine.
I totally agree with that. I think the Bucs, there's going to be some bumps in the road when you have a quarterback who's played in a system for almost 2 decades, with a completely different system. AB came back. I still think they're going to put it together. And the Saints also, obviously they've been flying under the radar after their 1-2 start or 2-2 start. And then they just got Michael Thomas back. Emmanuel Sanders came back because he was hurt the week before. They've got Quan Alexander. And there was a part of them that's wanted to make a statement game, big time for them to show that they're still potentially contenders in the NFC. So, yeah, I agree with you. I still think the Bucs are good and have a great chance to win a Super Bowl this year, or at least represent the NFC. Alex, what's your Over or
Yes,
underrated?
Kyle took mine. I can either add my thoughts or Nick, you can go and I'll scramble to find a new one.
There'll be one, Al.
Yeah,
Whatever you
was
want.
it?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Okay, I guess I'll scramble to find one. I realize this real quick about the Bucks, though. Their defense is inconsistent. I don't know if they're good because some days they'll play great against a good team like the Pack, and then all of a sudden they're struggling against the Panthers or something like that, or the Giants. Awful offenses.
The Panthers have good offense.
I'm going to talk about the Panthers later too, but keep going.
Anyway, they're an enigma. They could be good, they could be bad, I don't know, but they did play pretty bad, but we probably shouldn't react. Anyway, I'll find a new one.
Yeah, here I want people to talk more about this. I think people are kind of on board. I want people to be overreacting to this because this is awesome. Let's go Dolphins, boys. Let's go Dolphins.
Fin up, everyone. Let's go.
Tua's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
He was awesome. That game was sick.
I've been on it. Tua, it was my favorite quarterback coming out the draft, and even though he has some concerns, Tua looked awesome. And the Cardinals, those are two of my two favorite teams in the NFL right now, Dolphins and Cardinals. They both looked awesome. It was a shootout, great game. But Tua, he looked really good, but there's one key aspect to his game that I think is really important because we know he's not going to be Justin Herbert throwing bombs, right? But his comparison, people said if he really hits his potential, he could be a Drew Brees type. But I think people have been underestimating actually how athletic Tua is, because that was a big knock on him, is that he's short, but he's not as athletic as someone like Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson. But I saw him, his offensive line was a little up and down against the Cardinals, and he was still moving around well. If this was 10 years ago, we would be talking about Tua being one of the best athletes at the quarterback position right now as a young player, right? Like, he is a underrated athlete. He's not going to break out like Kyler Murray for 8 touchdown runs or 9 touchdown runs halfway through the season, right? He's not going to be running for 100+ yards all the time, if ever, but he has enough to use to make up for some of his lack of height, to move around in the pocket and get some big gains for them. He's incredibly accurate, and he's just going to improve. This Dolphins defense is elite. They are playing great football. Brian Flores is a great coach. They have 4 really winnable games. I believe it's Chargers, Broncos, Jets, Bengals are their next 4 games. They could easily go 3-1 right there. They've rattled off 4 in a row, and then they do have some tough games to end the year, but their last game of the year is against Buffalo. They're a game back right now of them. That could be for the division. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think the Dolphins are a playoff team, and they're in a great position for the next years to come if Tua keeps playing like this.
Yeah, we've all been expecting for the Bills after Tom Brady left to be running away with running away with this division. But the Dolphins and Brian Flores are making that very difficult. They're showing that the mantra that they're having within that organization, the changes that they've made with their coaching staff, the changes that they made with their camaraderie towards their teammates, whether they're rookies or free agents that they got just this year, they're all on the same page, and they're all in on becoming a special team. Like, I've been really, really impressed by this team. I think we have been thinking for a while that they're pretty underrated, but now seeing how Tua looked this past weekend, and that might not even be like his peak, we'll probably see him be even better than what we saw. I think this team could be in it for the long haul, not just for this season, but for many to come. If all goes well, him and Flores and everyone else there, it's going to be a great team, and it's going to make that division so much more interesting. So I'm all in. I love these Dolphins right now.
I tend to give a lot of flack towards former New England coaches because Brian Flores was over there. Yeah. But he is balling. And look at this. We're talking about a diversity rule that's brought in. You got a black head coach who's dominating out there on the field. He's made smart money decisions. He's brought in smart talent. That's what I'm talking about. And he deserves so much of the credit for what is going on in the Dolphins. When to pull Fitzmagic, to say to get Fitzmagic to win the games he's won this year is amazing. The coaching staff gets a lot of credit. Obviously, Tua and the boys out there balling. But friend of the show, our buddy Kevin, big Dolphins fan, he suffered for too long, and it's time to be hyped because he is balling out there. Miami's awesome.
Should have had him on this episode.
It's true. I'm all aboard. And real quick before we throw it back to you, Alex, the one thing about the Dolphins and the really exciting future about them, I mean, they'll have a top 10 pick in the draft. They have 2 first-round picks. I think maybe they have 2 this year, right? They have the Texans. The Texans are probably going to be a top 10 pick. Yeah. So that's big time for this Dolphins team to fill some holes. They've got a lot of cap space too still to go out and reload. And this defense, I mean, we should have known that this defense is going to be this good because they were pretty solid at the end of last year. They started to turn things around. Then you get Byron Jones, and then you get Kyle Van Noy. It's some big time moves. So I just love watching them play, and I'm excited to see them and another favorite of ours here on the podcast, the Bills, potentially battle it out on week 17. Probably not for the division, but there's a chance that it could be. So it should be a pretty fun game.
Bills are still good. I learned that the hard way. I'll get into that later, though.
All right, Alex, did you come up with a over or underrated, or should we move to surprises?
Real quick, I was just kind of looking at some of the things. I'll take an under, a team people I don't think I'm going to talk about enough, and that's the Oakland Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders. They're 5-3. They got to play a couple bad teams, but they upset the Chiefs in a crazy game, scoring 43 in that game. They have been shown that Gruden is doing his job. They brought in some good talent. They've gotten lucky with some guys. I mean, a Darren Waller who had his own personal demons that he was, it's a great story. What he did was able to come back, but to give him a chance is such a big deal that what they did. Derek Carr's balling. I can't believe Nelson Aguilar is doing so well.
He's balling.
It's
He's
amazing.
balling out. Every week I see tweets from the beat writers just, man, I wish the Eagles had a guy like Nelson Aguilar. All of a sudden, Nelson Aguilar can catch balls. He looks like he did in 2017, where he's not the number one guy that they're focusing on as a defense, so he's able to flourish, which I'm happy for him because I do love him, even though I've criticized him hard. But I'll just do a quick, wrap up there fast. But Oakland Raiders have been a sneaky little underrated team that people don't talk about as much.
Las Vegas.
The Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they've been balling. Good for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I'm going to lead off the surprise section. And this isn't, I'm going to kind of flip it on its head. It's I shouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have been if you would have told me at the start of the season, but I kind of forgot about this team. And now looking back at what has happened the last 3 weeks, I'm going to talk about the Chicago Bears for a second, just because I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on them. And I'm not surprised to see, but at the beginning of the season, we talked about the fact that Mitch Trubisky was probably going to start the year. Nick Foles is going to take over, and then Nick Foles is going to be Nick Foles, and he's going to play some good games, and then all of a sudden he's going to have a stretch at 3 or 4 games where he was terrible, and then everyone's going to step out and be like, oh, should they go back to Mitch Trubisky? And that could have been the big downfall. And then I see Nick Foles coming back against the Falcons, and I'm like, he's not insane, but he's definitely better than Mitch Trubisky. They're going to be probably a 6 or 7 seed. Then they lose 3 games, and I'm finding myself shocked about what I shouldn't be. That the Bears could potentially be falling apart. They've had a bad stretch. They're lucky to be above 500 with some of the wins they had early in the year. They have a huge game. I guess are they 5-4 right now? They have a huge game against the Vikings this weekend. And the Vikings are 3-5. If the Vikings beat the Bears this weekend, they'll have the same amount of losses, and they could actually go on a run to maybe make the 8th seed if that happens. But curious, the Bears kind of imploding makes me happy, but I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. Because we know who Nick Foles is. We've seen him do this for like 8 years, and yet I'm still surprised. So, Kyle, what's your surprise?
Oh, I'm not shocked at all. I mean, I've mentioned this many times. Like, the Bears are such a weird team. Like, don't get me wrong, that defense is good. That defense is absolutely good. But it's that offense that's just such a confusing, I don't know, hodgepodge of all these talents that Matt Nagy thinks he's so creative to make work, but it just doesn't. And I've given Nagy props for them having the good record that they were initially having, but I'm not surprised at the same time that, the plan that they've been having so far is not working out for them. Now a lot could change within the division, and the whole entire league in general, but no, this doesn't surprise me at all. As impressed as I have been with Nagy, I don't think he's the guy as to be the coach. GM might be a different story. I'm still out on that, but I think you need a different guy when it comes to coaching. Like, I've given him props, but I'm also not shocked that he's not able to keep that momentum going either. I don't know. It's the Bears are weird. It's a weird hodgepodge of hey, good job, but also you're doing a bad job. So.
Yeah, they've got an important couple weeks because they play the Vikings and then they have, I don't know who they play a week after that. Then they play the Packers. If they lose to the Vikings and Packers, they're probably not going to end up making it to the playoffs, which would be horrid for their start. But what's your overall surprise?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers. I think I mentioned Carolina Panthers as a surprise maybe a couple of weeks ago. But every week, I'm still surprised by the Carolina Panthers. That team has something going to where it almost reminds me of how the Dolphins were last season and how surprising they became as a team. Matt Rule is doing things right when it comes to the offense. The defense still has a lot of work, but when you have such competitive games like with the Buccaneers or with the Chiefs and there was another team, but I'm spacing on it now.
Saints and Bears as well.
Saints and Bears, yeah, like. When you see them competing and fighting, like, it just is so impressive. I don't know if we mentioned him for a Coach of the Year candidate last week. I can't remember, but now he's officially on the top of my list next to Brian Flores and Ron Rivera. Like, this guy, like, we know he's a good coach from college. Like, we've seen that already. But for him to make the leap to, the pros and be able to have this team, like, being such a big surprise and making, Teddy Bridgewater work as the quarterback. He's actually throwing deep. Like, we're not used to seeing Teddy Bridgewater do that, but they're, making it work with the talent that they have. And it's just, I don't know. Like, I just have been impressed, and I want to see what the Panthers will do, especially on the defensive side, because I think that needs a lot of work. But still, they're being competitive with some tough teams, and I got to give them props. And I really like how Matt Rule is handling this team in his first year.
Yeah, they're a team that feels like they just need to learn how to win, right? Like, a lot of games are really close, and if they feel a little bit like the Cardinals too, in a lot of close games, and then hopefully next year they can turn around. And they have a sneaky, I mean, not for us, we all have been on board, but they have a really good receiving core. Robbie Anderson has really turned out to be a potential number one guy. Even though he's not a top 10 guy, he's really good. Obviously, I know you love DJ Moore, and I'm a big Curtis Samuel fan, and he's been pretty awesome since coming back from that week off, I think, for an injury. So yeah, I'm all aboard.
Oh, when he was taking a nap.
Yep, taking a nap. All aboard the Panthers train. I hope they can keep turning around. So Alex, what are your thoughts
on the Panthers or my surprise?
Both.
Panthers balling, love it. They do feel like the Dolphins, and they might be they've got a bunch of quarterbacks in that division that are aging up and might retire. Where Teddy, if he can continue to go, is just he's in his prime. He's like 28 years old, something like that. So he's
still pretty young.
He's still got a good few years to really ball out. And we're only seeing quarterbacks play well older, so who knows? But my surprise is a pleasant surprise because the Dallas Cowboys are awful. And I love it. So I'm taking a pleasant surprise because they play so bad. I mean, that game was so bad. They looked awful. And yet you're watching the announcers, I think it was Troy and Joe Buck, who are saying, at least they've got a competent quarterback this week instead of DiNucci or whoever it was. And
Dane DiNucci.
It's been a pleasant surprise how bad they've been as an Eagle fan. I do not feel bad for them. Brandon Graham today came out and said when they played him, in his press conference, now that we're back at the facility, said some reporter asked a question about the Cowboy game, and he said, Brandon Graham was taking shots specifically at Amari Cooper because he said on his face he could see that Amari Cooper just had the face of a guy who preferred Dak Prescott to be out there, and then he just gave up. So Brandon Graham was lighting into him because that's what you see from Philly is we just don't give up, even no matter how many guys are down. Obviously, we can make a run with the Nick Foles. So it's a pleasant surprise how bad they are for me. I love it. I love how bad they are. I had to go with it. I had to, boys. I've been pumped.
And they're so bad. And the Steelers tried their best to give them a win, and they just Cowboys couldn't pull it off.
Oh, thank goodness for the Steelers.
All right, so that's our surprises. Let's just go quick over our teams, and I guess we can let the sad boy lead it off. Kyle, why don't you lead it off here with your old Seahawks?
When it comes to facing against Buffalo, this was definitely the game where I was locking us for a loss. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, granted, they had a couple of weeks to where they didn't look very good, but I don't know. I still had a feeling like they were still pretty good and they just needed something to get back on track. Offense, I wish kind of performed a bit better, but they still were lining up pretty well, and I think we're going to be fine there. Just have to do a bit better when it comes to blocking and, when defenses are blitzing us as hard as the Buffalo Bills were. It's the defense that I am no longer saying, let's wait and see. I'm now realizing that, they're exactly like they were last year, possibly even worse, which is surprising because
they're the worst defense ever.
Yep, go ahead. Just
arguably.
Let it out. It hurts all the same. It was just so bad. Like, our defensive line at least had pressure, and that helped with having Carlos Dunlap. But even still, Josh Allen was just able to fire it at anyone who he wanted because all of our corners and defensive backs, they're 15, 20 yards away from their guy, like, the entire time. Like, they're not lined up as close as they should be to, jam up the receiver and cause them to mess up. They're lined up so far back, and it makes no sense. I have a quote from Carroll after that game that just infuriated me about how bad.
I haven't heard this.
Oh, it just shows how bad it is on the defensive side. One quote from Pete after that loss, he said, "I don't recognize that game. It's a game I don't have any place in my brain for." Another quote, he says that when it comes to setting up their game plan on defense, they were expecting Buffalo to be running the ball. They didn't think for a second that they would give up on the run game immediately and only do passing through the majority of it. What is that? That makes no sense. Buffalo clearly does not have one of the best running games in the league. They're in the bottom 10 or so, maybe? Like, they're not very good when it comes to the run game this year.
As a fantasy owner of Devin Singletary, I also thought they were going in and running the ball hard. That's what I was wanting. So, I feel for you, Pete.
They use
disappointed me.
They use Zach Bosmore instead of Singletary. Anyway,
they don't risk statistically.
How do you not expect a team with the wide receivers that they have with that passing attack against your terrible pass defense when you have one of the best run defenses against one of the worst rushing offenses? Do you see where I'm going with this? How do you not expect the obvious? Like, fans are retweeting all these quotes saying, how do you not recognize, whether it's Ken Norton's plan, whether it's Pete Carroll's plan that maybe he's implementing in along with Norton, it's terrible coaching. It's terrible strategizing. And you know what? Things are fine on offense. Like, it's not perfect every week, but Russ shouldn't have to be perfect. Like, the defense should be able to step up so that way there's some cushion for the offense. But clearly that's not going to happen this year. No matter who we have, if we have Jamal Adams, if we have Carlos Dunlap, there'll be moments where there's a sack. Like, we actually had the most sacks that we've had in weeks with 7. Okay, that's great. You still weren't able to stop Josh Allen. You still weren't able to stop John Brown and Stephon Diggs, excuse me. But you have to do better. You have to do better on defense. You have to figure something out. And I doubt they will. I think they're going to roll with it, and they're going to use the talent that they have. And then I'm hoping that they fire Ken Norton after this. I'm hoping that they do a major restart on defense because, again, offense is great. I like what we see from it. Defense is just a joke. Like, you should not be doing this badly when you say that you're a defensive-minded head coach and when you have this talent after adding Quinton Dunbar, after adding Jamal Adams, after getting Quandre Diggs last year. You shouldn't be this atrocious. And they need to figure something out now, which I doubt they will, but we're just going to keep rolling with it, and it's going to cause us to miss out on a Super Bowl this year, no matter how good the offense is. So that's where I'm at now. I've decided to stop saying wait and see for the defense. I just accept it for what it is, and I'm going to watch Russ throw some sexy deep balls all day, which is also cool. So there you go.
Yeah, it's also concerning when the Bills lost 3 of their offensive linemen in that game, and you still
which is why we got
get
7
to win.
sacks.
Yeah, and it's also tough that Jamal Adams is basically just an edge rusher now. Like his PFF grade for coverage is horrendous right now, which is
and he was fine
not
in coverage
what you
originally.
want.
He was fine in coverage originally. It's clearly the coach and the scheme.
It definitely seems like I totally agree with you there. And for all of our awards talk last week and my confidence, Russell Wilson must have heard it and is doing everything in his power to try to throw away the MVP race.
Oh, God, it was bad. I haven't seen him lose that many footballs that way since when I played against you, Nick, that one year he threw
4 years ago.
Threw like 5 picks or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I do think because of that, it's possible that Rodgers can get the lead in MVP now.
Yeah. Well, actually, a lot of the media this week is for Patty.
I don't think it's close.
Patty.
I don't think there's a runaway winner anymore after this week. I think there's about 5 guys that are all in contention now, and it's anyone's race.
It's true.
My money's on Rodgers personally, but.
Yeah, it is an issue with that. Although Russ does, because your defense is so bad, he's always throwing touchdowns. Those 2 late time touchdowns could matter at the end of the year if he gets to 50 or something. Throwing a touchdown with a minute left or whatever. Basically, both of his were. But you guys also have a huge matchup this week against the Rams, and that could. I don't know how the tiebreakers would work, but if the Rams beat you guys and the Cardinals win, you'll be in a 3-way tie with them for your division, you go.
I was just going to say, and then we play the Cardinals right after again.
Yeah. So it's a big couple of weeks for you guys. Obviously, if you win those 2, you're really going to solidify yourself there. But another team that has a big matchup this week is the Eagles and the Giants. How you feeling about Philly?
I'm feeling incredibly optimistic because we're getting healthy, baby. Lane Johnson is feeling better. Isaac Salamalu, he bowls with our friend of the show, Justin. It's true. We got to bring him on and tell that story. I don't even know if it's a great story. I just know they bowl together sometimes. But he is he's our starting left guard. He's very good. He's been very good for a long time. He's not an elite all-time Pro Bowler, but he's what a lot of teams would give a lot of money for right now because he's a very good top half lineman in football. We've activated him off the injury reserve that they have now. He's practiced today in full. Alshon Jeffrey, who I was saying might be following up Kawhi Leonard, practiced
really?
in full
Alshon's
today.
back.
He practiced in full, is what I heard, or he did some stuff on the sideline, but he's practicing. I saw an image of I was on Instagram. I was scrolling through some of the Eagle photos of some plays on practice, and there was, Miles Sanders is also getting healthy and is expected to start this week from everything I've heard it, but I've seen like Miles, Boston Scott, Isaac Salamalu, and then the very last one was Alshon Jeffrey. And I remember I turned it, scrolled, went, wait a minute. And I went back. I was like, that's Alshon Jeffrey? Alshon's practicing? But hey, he's not running to New York to hide like Kawhi did, but he's practicing. So it is rumored that he is expected to start, and we'll go in with him. Fungi is what I call Travis Fulgham, Jalen Reagor, as well as Greg Ward, which gets
Dallas
me more
Goedert.
excited because we're just a little bit more healthy. Yes, Dallas Goedert turned 30 today. Happy birthday. Shout out to the man. Day before this airs. He should hopefully be back soon, but we're just getting healthy. And I think the Eagles know. I'm feeling optimistic because I really don't care about – I care about the records, but I also don't. Everybody's expecting us to lose every game except for the division games, which would put us at 6-10-1? No, 6-9-1, something like that.
If you win out?
Actually – no, if we
What's
win – if we win they're only expecting us to win the last 3 division games. We got the Giants, and then the last 2 weeks we'll play the Cowboys, and then end with the Washington.
That would put you at 6-9-1.
Yeah. We have a rough schedule. We go Giants, Browns, Hawks, Pack, you two, Saints, Cardinals.
Let's bury him, Kyle.
Let's go
until we get back to the division. So me knowing that all that matters is those division games, because I'm pretty sure it's almost to the point where unless somebody makes like a crazy run, it's gonna come down to those division games. And the Eagles got that tie, which is becoming a saving grace because that one tie alone is going to put us a half game up always. If we can just match records. So I'm optimistic. I do think we can flip one of these games. I think we can beat the Browns. They're very weird and inconsistent. I do like them, but they're weird. I am not afraid of Kyle's historically horrible defense. So if we can just have one good play on defense, a Brandon Graham strip sack, baby, I'd be down. The Pack
Rager's going to eat us alive.
I didn't expect that. We were healthy kind of last year. That's not true. We were still pretty hurt, and Nick and I had a wild game of emotions that one. But I expect us to probably lose all those big matchups. I do think the Browns is the most likely to flip. I hope we do. It'd be cool to flip it and win 7 games. Be 7. What would that be? 7-6-1.
No. You might as well. That'd be 7, 8-1. You need to win 8 games to get to 500.
No, I know. Well, with our tie, yeah. But I'm just saying, if it'd be cool to get closer, so that way we don't look as horrendous as we have been in the record books. We can be more like Hawks and Panthers team.
Yeah, but you would be better than them if you get to 7 wins with that tie, which would be funny. Because they were both 7 and 9.
And you never know. We're healthy. Doug Peterson's, I still think, is a very great coach. So maybe we'll make a weird run. I don't know. I don't think it'll happen. But, of course, I have to play Kyle on primetime football where he's going to beat me again. The Seahawks always win. Can't give me one.
Our defense is pretty bad. I don't know. Maybe you have a chance. And you'll do it on primetime.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you two both have huge games against the division rivals. Packers do as well. Jacksonville Jaguars are coming to town.
They're not
pretty big game.
Pretty big deal, Nick. Are you nervous?
Should be not even a little bit. Aaron Rodgers has never lost ever in his career to a team with a record of 1-7 or a winning percentage around this one. Not worried about it. I just want Aaron. Health is the big concern for the Packers. The Packers have a pretty favorable schedule for the rest of the year. They don't play. The best team we play is the Titans at home, I'm pretty sure, for us in week 16. And then, of course, we play the Bears twice. We play a couple of decent teams, Colts and Eagles. But other than that, Packers have a favorable schedule. It's just about staying healthy, trying to win as many games as we can, get close to the 1 seed. But last week, at the end of the game, we were missing our top 3 middle linebackers, our top 2 cornerbacks, our top 2 tackles, 2 of our running backs, and our second receiver. There's been a lot missing, and this week could be the first time Aaron, since the first half of the Detroit game in week 2, has had all of his offensive weapons because Alan Lazard should be coming back, and Devontae Adams is healthy. Yeah, I saw you just picked him up in fantasy. It's big time.
Yep.
And so Jamal Williams should be back from being off of the COVID list. And so Jair Alexander looks like he might miss this game if he doesn't get out of concussion protocol, but Kevin King should be back. Hopefully our middle linebackers are starting to get healthy. David Bakhtiari, one of the best left tackles in football. It's all about health for the Packers right now. The NFC, I think, increasingly has become more obvious that whatever team is healthiest, whatever team is hot, is going to probably win this conference because everyone's so close. Packers beat the Saints, but then the Bucks beat us, but then the Saints blew out the Bucks, right? So I think there's a handful of teams, more than I thought last week, that are in it to make it to the NFC Championship. It's about who's playing well, who's really what team has the chemistry going, what quarterback's playing the best, and health. And for the Packers, that's all. This mini bye week we got off of this 49ers win I think it's going to be big time for us. Looks like David Bakhtiari's back practicing as well. So it's all about health. I'm really excited to see Alan Lazard come back because we just haven't seen Aaron with all the weapons outside of a game and a half, and yet he's thrown 24 touchdowns and 2 picks, which is pretty wild. So
yeah, I feel that. I feel everything you're saying. I relate deep in my heart. You should let me beat you because of that.
No.
You're gonna wear that pretty new jersey I bought you, and you're gonna flex all over me. I know it.
Hopefully. But yeah, that's it for me. Any last thoughts for you guys about the NFL? Just excited. Week 10.
Nick and I are brothers. We're blood. Kyle is the closest thing you can get to not, in our family. He's a brother, but you never see how much we hate each other and how much we really think about each other until their teams are playing. I mean, I remember last year we were all saying when we had to play each other things about your team where it's like, now wait a minute, if we had a podcast, you weren't saying that for the last month, and then all of a sudden you're saying this stuff. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun month when we all play each other. There's going to be some fun get back. If I lose to both of you, I might just skip that next week's episode.
Nick and I will just party it up.
I might just
exactly.
I might just leave, but I'm excited. Bye weeks are nice until the anxiety hits, and now I'm ready to watch Eagles football again. I'm ready to watch Travis Fungi and my boys.
He's been awesome.
He's been balling.
Been great for my fantasy team. If it case anything,
bring that up either. What a disappointing year for football.
But yeah, big games. The game I'm keeping my eye on is the Seahawks Rams game, because that is going to have big implications potentially for the NFC as a whole.
Yeah,
and should be pretty interesting. But I think the Seahawks have got a good chance just because Russell Wilson's probably not going to have back-to-back 4 turnover games.
God, I hope not.
But they are coming off of a bye for the Rams. Yeah. Oh, that would be funny.
I'm just throwing shots because I haven't beaten the Seahawks since Kyle started paying more attention and watching with me.
Yeah. And so, I'm excited. I'm also excited to see the NBA draft, and hopefully the Spurs make some moves. Russell Westbrook might be on a different team next week. So thank you guys for checking out this episode of the podcast. Make sure to follow us and do all the things. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.